Welcome back to Going Medieval. The early morning sun rising over our splendid little village lends it an enchanting glow. In the last episode, we set up brick and ingot production, beefed up our defenses, and gained our 5th colonist. In this episode, we'll be trying to harvest and expand our farm, make our first set of armor, and use our reinvigorated research capacities to start unlocking some more fun technologies. We're going to try not to put our defenses to the test, but I don't think... yeah, we'll be putting them to the test. So let's get to it. It's been a while since the last raid, but we're still not quite ready for the next one. This back wall needs some cover to be used by our archers, and another wall in this choke will help funnel enemies down nicely. Speaking of defenses, I sent Dudok out here to our rear entrance to help me test what's there and make sure I had the right ideas for our main gate. It turns out you can just run by the palisades on that slope, and even when there's not a free path beside them, you can just move through them, albeit slowly. I don't want enemies to run through here, I want them going around to the main entrance, so we're going to break this one off while leaving a door there for our colonists to go through. Kind of. I thought locking it meant that only our colonists would be allowed to go through, but it actually means no one will be, and everyone will be running around the long entrance. Whoops. I sent our new colonist Dudok out to hunt. He's not the best at it, but he is at marksman level 9, and the superior longbows require a skill level of 10 to use. However, Dudok doesn't really get much experience per shot, and he misses a lot, which means the animals will run off much more quickly than he can follow them. For now, he'll focus on crafting whatever we need him to make, and take over as our builder. Millicent is better at construction, but I want her doing full-time research. To help facilitate that, we're going to be putting in a second research table. This should double the rate at which we make chronicles to unlock research, and I think the other 3 villagers can support them. Maybe. Hopefully. Speaking of research, we unlock tailoring, not to make sure our colonists don't suffer from heat stroke in the summer or hypothermia in the winter, but just to later grab armorer. We finished having our colonists haul the iron we harvested to a nearby stockpile, so we'll have them start smelting it into ingots for actual use. Like the kiln, this will involve a colonist doing some work to get it started, then letting it run without a colonist for a long time. A really long time. Much longer than in the kiln. Unfortunately, things aren't bright and splendid for everyone in our little village. Joanna has had a bad day and set off our first mood alarm. That means that we need to start caring about their moods a little bit more. We've largely ignored it till now, but we might have to think about unlocking brewing, or looking at other ways to actually give them a mood buff. I think one of the most appealing ways, and something we're looking to be doing eventually anyways, is to start giving colonists their own room instead of making them bunk together. We'll throw down a small but serviceable 5x5 room made of brick walls with a wicker roof and see how that looks before we decide to make more of them. Oh, and our bedroom should probably have a floor. Though, just in case we do want to go down the brewing route, we'll up our barley production by harvesting some wild barley and beginning to cultivate it. As long as it takes these to start up, it takes them even longer to actually smelt the ore down. Almost twice as long. This means that one person has to work nearly a full-time job just running these 2 facilities, which is a pretty hefty labor cost. Joanna is feeling better today, though she did end up having a night terror. Still, I think she'll have issues again later in the day if we don't start giving her more mood buffs. 2 research tables are putting in work though. We can unlock armor, which cost 30 of these blue chronicles, after just over 24 hours since our last unlock. This means we're going to be making fast work of the rest of the tech tree. This armorer's table is huge, but it'll fit in well right here. Thankfully, we expanded this building in the last episode. The actual room of our first private bedroom is done, which means we need to move the bed into it. Colonists that sleep here, as opposed to the bunk room on the 2nd floor of our initial building, will get a mood buff for the next day. The armorer's table is done, which means we can now break down armor and, more importantly, make our own. A shield is all that we can actually make right now until we get the leather for real armor though. It's hailing? In the middle of summer? What kind of climate catastrophe is going on here? Hopefully this doesn't make it too hard to actually find deer and take their leather for armor. Sure enough, it looks more like it's snowing, and this hail doesn't really seem to be doing anything. Maybe that's because the game's still in early access? I'm not really sure. I can definitely imagine this damaging roofs and resources that aren't stored inside in the future though, or killing crops. Oh man, this means that I can't seamlessly cut clips in from the future. Although this nasty weather is a good reminder to put in a sewing station. Even if I'm not using it for clothes yet, we will eventually need it to make some winter clothes. Though, these take too much fabric for now. We'll have enough by the time winter arrives, fortunately. I guess we could make straw hats? Huh, neat. It's another day later, which means we have another 30 blue books to unlock some new research. Now, I really want a smithery, but it costs 100 limestone bricks, which we don't have. Remember, 100 limestone bricks. Yeah, there's gonna be an oops in the future. Anyways, because we definitely cannot build a smithery just yet, we're gonna unlock a better research table. This will let us make a higher tier of books, which will unlock more advanced technologies. Joanna got to actually sleep in the first private bedroom, which is giving her a mood buff. Good thing she has it too, because there's a lot of mood debuffs she has going on right now that would be putting her in a bad mood. Either way, the bedroom works, and we have the materials to immediately start working on a second. Although we are going to go ahead and make our shield first, since no one else is having any mood issues. God, wow, making a shield takes so much time. It's going to take him all day to even make decent progress on it. With Dudok working on the shield, some other villagers try to start constructing the new bedroom to be, which means they need some more work to do. Joanna can continue deforestation. Maybe that's why it was hailing the summer. Joanna can also start to mine out the cellar's cross section for a wooden beam to go in later. Waynhild, meanwhile, can start hunting. We're gonna need that leather for armor. Although all these deer are really far away, so it'll take quite a long time to actually get them. Well, except for this one. He came running to us. I guess he just doesn't want to cling on to life quite as dearly. Night's fallen as Dudok finally finishes the shield he's been working on all day. Still, this will do a good job protecting Joanna. I noticed that we're once again out of cooked meals. Well, kind of. We don't have any cooked meals in storage, but we do have some. I even kind of moused over and missed them in my panic. Anyways, let's just ignore this poor perception moment as Joanna rushes to cook. I later notice the pile of pies we had, realize what's going on, and extend the stockpile to avoid this exact mistake happening once again. We finished hunting and butchering a few deer, and now we can actually start crafting armor. No, Waynhild, you keep trying to go above and beyond doing things you're not suited for. Oh, actually, you're a great tailor. My bad. Like the shield though, making these pieces is going to take a very long time. Butchering all those deer for leather to make armor also gave us a ton of meat that's starting to rot. I hadn't intended to, but I'm actually going to go ahead and unlock preserved food, and more specifically smokehouses. This should let us go ahead and preserve some of this food for the future, and we're not really pressed for any other technologies just right now. We'll put the first smokehouse in here, right outside our kitchen. The beam in the cellar in our production building is done, so we can start to mine out more of the rest of the area. I want to put in my new advanced research table here, so I'm going to mine out a space for that first. A new merchant caravan has arrived, and wow, they've got a ton of people. Man, thankfully they aren't attacking us, they'd just run us through after we let them in the gates. The smokehouse is done. This is another idle production facility, so Joanna is going to come start things up, and then wait while it actually smokes the meat. The merchants have some really interesting stuff. Carrot seeds to help diversify our diet. Ooh, apple saplings. We're definitely going to want some of those, although I don't know if we're going to actually be able to make them just yet. We'll sell the beet seeds we can't actually plant, and a few clay bricks to actually afford these goods. The merchants also had a cartography table for sale, which would actually let us bypass unlocking this technology. However, the table itself cost a ton of money, and I think it's just better to make the extra 30 books in one day than to make all the clay bricks or other goods that we'd sell them to actually get the table itself. Right now, we're going to unlock limestone brickmaking, find out that the stonemason bench it gives us goes inside, and place it despite the game insisting that it can't go there. The smokehouse is working, but it's slow. Too slow. Our meat is going to go bad soon, so we're putting a second smokehouse in to try and alleviate that. I'm going to go ahead and try to edit our villagers' diet so that they don't eat smoked meat until we're out of fresh food, but I can't find it under the meals tab when editing their allowed food. I started to extend our food cellar, but doing so absolutely destroyed the wooden beam I'd initially put in. We'll have to put a new one in once we finish excavating the area for it. The first piece of armor is finished. It's sturdy, which I think is fairly low on the quality level, but it's at full hit points. This means that it provides more damage reduction than the higher tier but flimsy and damaged iron armor that we looted from our first 7 invaders. Joanna is going to go ahead and put it on since she's going to be our frontline melee fighter. It actually puts it on our model too. That's a nice touch. Although the sprite itself does look a little bit strange. Our first order of smoked meat is done. I tried to edit the food preferences again and do manage to find it under raw food. I guess it's considered raw. That does kind of make sense, but I know you can eat cooked salmon and be fine. In real life, I mean. There's no fishing in game. Or water to fish in. I wonder if this whole thing is a bug, or if we can cook it into meals at a later date. Either way, this takes a long time to rot or decompose, even when outside in the summer heat. That spare bedroom I started a while ago has been ready, but it's been bedless. Whoops, this should fix that. Dudok has finished actually putting in the stonemason bench, which means that we can cut our first limestone bricks. Nice. Our farms are starting to bear fruit. Or, well, they're bearing vegetables and seeds, but that's not a saying. We've got a ton of cabbage seeds now. We'll leave those 3 plots in to seed one more time, but the rest are going to go to actually plant a proper field of cabbages that we'll harvest for food. We're also going to plant the carrot seeds we got and have them go to seed. And finally, we harvested our first flax cloth. We're going to expand the fields for those with the seeds we got from them as well. This should give us enough cloth for some clothes before winter arrives. The cellar in the production building has been cleared out enough for us to put in our proper research table. The cellar in our kitchen is also ready for its new wooden beam. The upgraded research table is done, which means that we can now make textbooks. These red research scrolls are required for unlocking higher tiers of technologies. For example, Armorer 1 only required blue books, but unlocking Shields 2 or Armorer 2 requires both blue and red books. We go ahead and unlock blacksmithing, even though we don't have the limestone bricks for it. Yep, look at that. It requires limestone bricks. We're behind on food again. Actually behind, I didn't just miss some pies this time. Joanna's gonna have to wake up early again to make some breakfast for everyone. This unintentionally puts her in a race against Dudok and Jeffrey's need to eat raw meat. It's a down-to-the-wire finish, but they just barely decide to go for the stew that Joanna made them instead. I guess I should have put them all on a no-smoked meat diet instead of only setting Waynhill to it. In better news, the sturdy leather helmet is finished, meaning that Joanna will actually get our first proper set of armor. The helmet actually looks really good too. Let me just see what size the smithery is so I can... You can actually build a forge out of either clay or limestone bricks. We didn't need to wait for this. We should have saved 100 clay bricks. Well, at least this means we can pretty up our defenses earlier rather than later. We're not going to have time to actually pretty much up at all. A 6th colonist arrives at our doorstep, but, like Millicent, he's followed by a raid. A big one. About 8 attackers. We'll still take him, of course, and not just because I want to actually test our defenses. He's a good botanist and a good miner, but that's about it. He's got some other passions that are interesting, but the actual skill in them is pretty low. I guess he could make a good backup researcher when some of our other researchers are really busy. So, did you know that you don't have to manually tell your cook to make meals whenever you want them? You can just set it so that your cook always makes a certain number of meals available in storage? I didn't, but I do now. The attack's about a day out, so I'm checking our research table to see if there's anything helpful we could grab before the raid, but I'm not seeing anything. I still want to add a bit to our defenses to make sure there's 2 full choke points I can fall back on if needed. This means that we're actually going to get to use our limestone bricks. Finally, we get that lovely aesthetic. Although it is attached to 2 other materials and looks, questionable because of that. We try to add a door into our defenses, but we're out of wood. Our tree farm is close to ready, but not quite there yet. Oh, actually, we had the wood somewhere. Well, whatever. Now that the door's there, we can start the next phase of our plan. Digging. I'm not sure if any of you played tower defense maps on Warcraft 3 back in the day, but this is definitely a bit of a throwback. The idea here is to make enemies run through what'll effectively be a maze, while our archers pelt them from above. The door we installed will let us pass through easily, but they're going to have to take the long, awkward path around. Because there's no combat related research that we can get in time, I think we'll just go ahead and get some bees going. The candle wax and honey will both be nice, and I just think the bees in general will be a pleasant addition. After a bit of debate on where these should actually go, we're going to put them in the middle of our crops. These crops need to be pollinated so it fits, and it will be nice not to have bees swarming our actual buildings. We need someone to prep the bees? Feed them? I'm not really sure. Regardless, this is the first thing we're doing that requires the animal husbandry skill, so let's see. Joanna's pretty good, so she gets more responsibilities. We won't actually have time to get bees going, however. The raids arrived, and there's 10 of them, more than expected. This doesn't mean we'll waver, but I am getting a bit worried. Still, we're not about to capitulate to their demands. Well, that's a lot of them though, and I see some scary weapons and metal armor there. I think if any of them can close in on Joanna, they might be able to take her in a one-on-one fight. Walter isn't fully recovered yet, and isn't much of a fighter regardless. He's really only going to come into play if Joanna gets taken out, which means that we're effectively outnumbered 2-1. The raiders arrived in the middle of the night, but they're nice enough to not attack until we've had our beauty sleep. I just had to say something. Well, let's draft everyone. The archers will go to the high ground, and the melee fighters will be outside of our door in the choke there. The enemy is straggling just a bit, which is really good for us. I think our 4 archers are going to be able to get some big hits in early and take some out before they can even really get to us. Oh, Dudok actually can't shoot beside his companions. We're going to go ahead and pull him back a bit to our new wall and let the 3 superior archers stay forward to get as many shots in as they can. That's a lot of damage. That's enough to almost take one raider out immediately. I think when these 3 were firing short bows, a volley only took about half of a raider's health out. Ooh, the enemy archers are here. We're gonna have to focus on them. All 3 arrived at the same time, so this might go badly. Their melee fighters are also closing in. We're gonna pull back just a little bit to force them to funnel through the choke instead of ganging up on Joanna. Dudok is giving her some cover fire and stopping them from actually going in to hit her much. Meanwhile, our archers are knackering theirs. 2 of them go down simultaneously, though they also got some big hits off. Jeffrey took an arrow to the face. One more hit could take him out, but they only have 1 archer left. Our 3 fire and clean him up with one last volley. Their melee fighters scatter and start to struggle, so I think we're going to be good from here. I know it didn't really look like it, but that got pretty close. If a few more fighters had gotten into melee range, they definitely could have punched through Joanna and caused some serious injuries there. Still, that's our victory. We're intentionally letting that guy go to tell the tale. We're also just gonna kill the last person for fun. Yeah, there's a ton of good stuff left over here. Sturdy armor, fine quality weapons that we don't even have the technologies to make yet. The battlefield is riddled with plenty. I'm not sure if we're gonna make the time to break all these down, but their rotting goods should be a stern message to our enemies. Let none stand in our way. I've been trying a new style of editing in this video, where I cut it a bit less and you get to see a bit more of what's going on, while the whole thing still feels snappy and entertaining. Make sure to drop a like if you prefer this style, or comment if you enjoyed the quicker videos from before. Either way, you're legally obligated to sub.